Imagine this. A virus, one you normally find just in wild birds, suddenly makes this huge leap, not just into one new animal, but setting up shop, really establishing itself in dairy cows all across the United States.
Yeah, and then from those cows, it starts infecting people. It's a pretty startling turn of events in the world of viruses and how they jump species.
Okay, yeah, startling is the word. So let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into the 2024-2025 H5N1 bird flu situation. We've gathered information from CDC reports, scientific studies, media coverage, the works.
And our goal here is really to cut through some of the noise. We want to give you the essential nuggets, how this thing jumped to cows, what it means for human health, and why you keep hearing officials say the risk is low, but also high vigilance.
Right. So if you've heard about H5N1 in cows and you're wondering, what's really going on, or maybe how concerned you should be, this deep dive is definitely for you.
We'll cover the surprising facts, the big questions scientists are still grappling with, and what it all means for you and the bigger picture of public health.
Okay, let's start with the timeline. When did this all kick off? The first alarms really sounded back in March 2024.
That's right. Highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1 was found in dairy cattle in the U.S., started in Texas and Kansas.
And it spread fast, didn't it? Pretty quickly, it was in, what, 6 states? Idaho, New Mexico, Ohio, Michigan?
Exactly. And fast forward to July 2025, just over a year later, it's confirmed in dairy herds across 17 states. California actually got hit the hardest, reporting over 760 infected herds.
Wow, 760. So the investigation into how this happened, what did they find? Because that's the really wild part.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The evidence points towards a single introduction event, probably from a wild bird into a cow herd, maybe late 2023.
Just one event.
Seems like it. And then, crucially, the virus started spreading from cow to cow. And you have to understand, influenza viruses infecting cattle. Before 2024, that was considered, exceptionally rare.
So this establishment in dairy cows, it's totally new territory.
Completely unprecedented. And it wasn't long before we saw the consequences for humans. Early April 2024, the first human case linked to this pops up.
Right, the Texas dairy farm worker.
Yeah.
What were the symptoms like?
Thankfully mild. Mainly conjunctivitis, that's, eye inflammation, pink eye, no serious breathing problems. They were treated with antivirals and recovered at home.
Okay, and the virus itself?
Yeah.
Any scary new mutations found right away?
Not in that first case, no. The virus, the specific type called clade 2.3.4.4b H5N1, didn't show any significant changes that would immediately suggest easier human spread.
But then more cases followed. Michigan, May 2024.
Yep, a second dairy worker in Michigan. Similar story, mild eye irritation, full recovery. The link seemed to be a direct contact with infected cows or their milk, maybe, milk splashing into an eye, that kind of thing.
Okay, direct occupational exposure. Makes sense. But then the third case, also in Michigan, late May. That one was a bit different, wasn't it?
It was, because up until then, it was mostly eye symptoms. This third worker had respiratory symptoms, a cough, in addition to the eye irritation.
Uh-huh. And that raises alarm bells, right? Because flu usually spreads through respiratory droplets.
Exactly. It was a worrying sign. Even though, thankfully, it still didn't lead to any human-to-human spread, it showed the virus could potentially get into the respiratory tract. Investigations suggested this worker maybe wasn't using protective gear while handling sick cows.
A stark reminder about farm biosecurity. Now, not all cases stayed mild globally. There was a fatality in the U.S., wasn't there?
Yes, sadly. In January 2025, Louisiana reported the first U.S. death linked to H5N1 in this period. But it's important to note, this person had underlying health issues and their exposure was likely to backyard poultry or wild birds, not the dairy cows.
Okay, so a different exposure route. But still, it showed H5N1 can be deadly.
Absolutely. And around that same time, 2 other people were hospitalized, one in Wyoming, one in Ohio, also infected directly from birds with more severe symptoms. Experts pointed out, look, this shows H5N1 can be serious. We shouldn't assume it's always going to be mild conjunctivitis.
So bringing us up to mid-2025, where do we stand with human cases in the U.S.?
Around 70 to 75 confirmed human cases since this whole thing started, almost all linked directly to animal exposure, mostly dairy cattle, some poultry.
And mostly mild still.
Mostly mild, yes. But California has seen the most cases, over 35, which mirrors the large number of affected farms there. And the absolutely crucial point, still no sustained human-to-human transmission found. Every case traces back to an animal.
Which brings us to the official risk assessment. The CDC keeps saying the risk to the general public is low.
They do. They emphasize it's not spreading person to person in a sustained way. They've activated pandemic plans. They're watching closely, but no major changes recommended for the public beyond, avoid sick animals.
And the WHO, the World Health Organization, same page.
Pretty much. Global risk assessed as low. They also stress that the virus hasn't picked up the key mutations needed to spread easily between people yet.
So it's this interesting balance. Low risk for now, but extremely high vigilance, especially for people working directly with animals.
Exactly. That's the tightrope they're walking. Use the One Health approach, track animal, human, environmental health together, and be ready to react fast if anything changes.
Okay, let's dig into some of the big unanswered questions here. Top of the list for many people, is the milk safe to drink?
Yeah, huge concern initially, especially when they found H5N1 genetic material in raw milk from infected cows.
But the key word there is raw, right?
Absolutely. Pasteurization, the heating process milk goes through, kills the virus. Lab tests confirmed it. Plus, milk from sick herds is supposed to be diverted and destroyed. It shouldn't even enter the commercial supply.
And the FDA testing.
They've tested hundreds of samples of pasteurized dairy products off the shelves, found no viable infectious virus. So USDA, FDA, they're saying the commercial pasteurized milk supply is safe.
Okay, that's reassuring for supermarket milk. But raw milk, unpasteurized milk, that's a whole different story.
A huge difference. Officials are strongly warning against it, and for good reason. Raw milk was linked to dozens of cat deaths on farms. They drank contaminated raw milk and got H5N1. Yeah, and California even had to recall raw milk from one dairy because they found H5N1 in it at the retail level. The CDC's message is blunt. Don't drink raw milk. Just don't. Especially not now.
Okay, message received on raw milk. Now another puzzle. How exactly is this spreading between the cows?
Right. The obvious guesses were moving infected cows between farms or contaminated equipment, maybe even farm workers carrying it unintentionally.
But it kept spreading, suggesting maybe something else was going on.
Exactly. And some recent research around July 2025 pointed to a couple of less obvious culprits. One is flies.
Flies? Seriously?
Yeah, they found H5N1 genetic material in houseflies caught on an infected farm. The idea is flies could just mechanically carry the virus from, say, manure or milk spills to feed bunks or directly onto other cows.
Huh. And the other idea. Something called milk snatching.
Right. Basically, cows self-nursing or nursing each other. If one cow has the virus in her udder, another cow nursing from her could get infected. A lab study actually showed introducing the virus to a cow's teat led to infection, and a calf drinking that infected milk could then spread it further.
So these pathways, flies, and this milk snatching, could they be sort of stealthily amplifying the virus on farms?
It's a very active area of investigation. That milk pathway could definitely explain how it spreads so efficiently within a barn. It highlights just how tricky this specific outbreak is.
And the million-dollar question, always lurking with bird flu, could it mutate? Could it change to spread easily between people?
That's the ultimate concern, always. H5N1 is known for its ability to mutate, and every time it spills over into mammals, like cows, it's basically another chance for it to adapt.
Have scientists found any worrying changes in the viruses from the dairy cows?
They have found some, yes. Specifically, mutations in a gene called PB2. Two changes, known as D701N and E627K, have popped up. And these specific mutations are known to help flu viruses replicate better inside mammalian cells, as opposed to bird cells.
Okay, better replication in mammals. That sounds not good.
It's definitely a warning sign. It shows the virus is adapting to its new mammalian host. It hasn't led to human spread, let's be clear. But as experts like Dr. Scott Hensley have said, the widespread infection in cows is worrisome precisely because it gives the virus more chances to evolve.
What about those ferret studies? They often use ferrets as a stand-in for humans in flu research.
Right. So far, most ferret studies show the current H5N1 strains still act mostly like bird viruses. They don't transmit easily through the air via respiratory droplets between the ferrets.
Fine.
But one CDC study did show that a virus taken from a Michigan dairy farm could spread between ferrets after they were directly inoculated, which suggests maybe a moderate level of adaptation to mammals is already happening. It's not full airborne transmission, but it's a step.
So putting it all together, what's the full zoonotic potential here? This virus has jumped into a mind-boggling number of mammals now, right?
It's astonishing. Over 20 different mammal species just in North America. Foxes, bears, seals, dolphins, cats, dogs, pigs, and now cattle on a massive scale.
Which raises all sorts of questions about mixing vessels animals that could get infected with both bird and human flu.
Right, like pigs, potentially. Or silent reservoirs animals spreading it without showing symptoms. And how long the virus lasts in the environment, like in manure lagoons. The big fear is, will H5N1 just become permanently established in cattle? Because that would mean a constant long-term risk of it spilling over into humans sporadically.
This really feels different from past H5N1 scares.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why this time is different. The cattle jump itself is number one, obviously.
Absolutely. Before 2024, H5N1 in cows was virtually unheard of. When mammals got infected before, cats, tigers, whatever it was, usually a dead end, the virus didn't then spread widely within that mammal species. This sustained cow-to-cow spread is the game changer.
And the sheer scale geographically and the number of species hit. This current global wave of H5N1 clade 2.3.4.4b since 2021. It's been devastating for birds.
Unbelievable die-offs. Over 160 million poultry culled worldwide, more than 58 million just in the US. And then these repeated jumps into mammals everywhere, farmed mink in Spain, sea lions in South America, foxes in the UK, and now this huge range in the US culminating in cattle.
It shows this particular virus strain is incredibly adaptable, a real host generalist compared to previous strains.
Definitely. It's finding ways into species we never thought possible before, and on a scale we haven't seen.
Now, human cases. Historically, H5N1 was terrifying. Since 97, about 970 cases globally, but with a staggering 50+% fatality rate, often severe pneumonia. How does the current situation compare?
It's a really key difference. In this current wave, since 2022, really, there have been fewer than 100 human cases globally. And critically, many of them, especially the U.S. dairy worker cluster, have been atypically mild eye infections, maybe mild flu symptoms.
So the U.S. case fatality rate is way lower.
It's much lower. Around 1.4% in the U.S. cases linked to this recent period, compared to that historical 50%. It's a stark contrast.
Why the difference? Is the virus milder? Are we just detecting more mild cases now with better surveillance?
Probably a mix of factors. The virus variant might be different, medical care might be better, and yes, the intense monitoring of farm workers likely picks up very mild cases that would have been missed years ago.
But a word of caution is needed, right? We can't assume it will stay mild.
Exactly. Other flu outbreaks like H7N9 years ago started relatively mild and then evolved to become more severe. So complacency is dangerous.
And the response this time feels different too, more coordinated.
Generally, yes. There's more emphasis on the One Health idea, animal health, human health, environmental health working together. We've seen rapid animal testing, human surveillance, data sharing efforts, the CDC task force.
Though it has been perfect. You mentioned challenges in the U.S. dairy outbreak.
Yeah, there were definitely bumps. Some data didn't flow smoothly between agriculture and health agencies initially. It took the USDA about a month to mandate testing for cows moving interstate, and nearly 10 months to get a big, systematic milk surveillance program running nationally.
And that might have made a difference. You mentioned Colorado versus California.
It seems like it. Colorado acted very fast with testing and farm lockdowns and managed to stamp out the virus in their dairy herds. California's response was slower, and the virus really took hold there.
And the other big strategic shift, not culling the cows.
Right. With poultry, the standard playbook is immediate culling of infected flocks to stop spread. But dairy cows are high-value animals, and they often recover from H5N1 with just mild illness. So the decision was made, controversially perhaps, to mostly quarantine and treat infected cows, not wipe out entire herds. It's an economic consideration, trying to avoid devastating the dairy industry.
Okay, let's look at the tools being used, the surveillance and containment measures. On the animal side, testing and movement controls were put in place.
Yeah, that USDA federal order from April 2024 required lactating cows to test negative before crossing state lines. That was a key step.
And the milk surveillance program you mentioned, that sounds like a big deal.
It really is. The National Milk Testing Strategy launched late 2024. They started sampling raw milk from big silos at processing plants across, I think, 45 states every week.
And it actually worked. Found infections early.
It did. It detected a new genetic variant, D1.1, in milk from Nevada and Arizona before farmers even noticed sick cows. So milk itself became this early warning system. Pretty innovative.
Then there's biosecurity on the farms themselves. What does that involve?
Basic stuff, but crucial. limiting who comes onto the farm, making sure workers practice good hygiene, washing hands, changing boots, disinfecting equipment, controlling pests like rodents and wild birds that could carry the virus in. California even declared a state of emergency, partly to boost these efforts.
And we touched on the culling versus treatment debate for cows. They mostly treat and isolate.
Yes, for dairy cows. The milk from sick cows is dumped, and USDA provides some compensation. It's just a different economic calculation than with poultry.
What about vaccines? Any progress there?
For poultry, there are approved H5N1 vaccines, though widespread use hadn't really started by early 2025. For cattle, there's no licensed vaccine yet, but research and development are happening. Some experimental trials are underway.
And human vaccines.
The U.S. government, HHS, has been talking to companies like Pfizer and Moderna about potential mRNA H5N1 vaccines. And we already have stockpiled candidate vaccine viruses based on older H5N1 strains that could be scaled up for production if needed, but right now, no mass vaccination is called for.
How about monitoring people who might have been exposed?
That's a big part of it. The CDC has guidance for states to monitor exposed workers, usually for about 10 days, checking for symptoms, offering voluntary testing. Thousands of people have been monitored this way.
And that survey of vets. Some had antibodies without symptoms.
Yeah, a small Sarah survey found 3 out of 150 bovine vets had antibodies, suggesting they'd been infected in the past without even knowing it. Silent infections are possible.
And if someone does test positive,
They get isolated, treated with antivirals like Tamiflu with seltamivir. Close contacts might be traced and sometimes offered antivirals as a precaution, but generally contacts aren't quarantined, reflecting that person-to-person spread just isn't happening readily.
and briefly, wastewater surveillance, like we saw with COVID.
Yeah, they're using that too. The CDC has a dashboard tracking H5N1 fragments in wastewater. It's another layer of surveillance, and so far it's helped confirm that there isn't widespread hidden human infection happening in the general community.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. How has this all played out in the news and with the public? Was there immediate panic?
Not really initially. The first news in spring 2024 got attention, but it was competing with lots of other stories. It wasn't until later in 2024, and especially with that first U.S. death in January 2025, that it really became a bigger, more sustained headline.
Did the media coverage get the nuances right?
Some did. Shows like 60 Minutes did segments trying to balance the real threat with the reassurance that it wasn't spreading between people easily. But overall, public awareness seems kind of patchy.
Patchy how?
Well, surveys suggest a lot of people are sort of vaguely aware, maybe suffering from a bit of pandemic fatigue after COVID. One poll found only about a quarter of Americans even knew H5N1 could infect humans.
Wow. And then there was that whole raw milk thing. That got weird, didn't it?
It really did. You had health officials screaming, "Don't drink raw milk," because of the H5N1 risk, and at the same time, a bunch of social media influencers were pushing it hard as some kind of superfood.
I remember seeing something about a doctor promoting it for babies.
Yeah, that caused a huge backlash. But the strangest part, raw milk sales actually spiked after H5N1 hit the news. Sales went up significantly, like 20 to 65% year over year in the weeks following the cow confirmations.
That's completely counterintuitive. Why?
It seems like a perfect storm of publicity-boosting awareness of raw milk generally, combined with a segment of consumers who distrust regulators and are drawn to wellness trends promoted online. It really highlighted this clash between scientific advice and online fads.
And inevitably, conspiracy theories, too.
Oh, yeah. Baseless stuff about it being a hoax or a pandemic, very similar to what we saw with COVID. Political distrust definitely fuels that kind of speculation.
But on the positive side, the messaging about pasteurized milk being safe seems to have gotten through. No mass boycotts.
Largely, yes. The CDC, USDA, the dairy industry, they pushed that message hard, and it seems to have worked. So while there's concern, the overall public vibe isn't panic, more like warranted caution.
Okay, let's zoom out for a global perspective. This H5N1 isn't just a U.S. cow problem, right?
Not at all. Canada's seen impacts, including, tragically, a very sick teenager in BC. Europe hasn't had cattle infections, but they've had H5N1 spill into other mammals, cats in Poland, mink in Spain, wild animals like foxes and otters in the UK. And they're leaning more towards vaccinating poultry now.
Asia, the place where human H5N1 historically hit hardest.
They have strong surveillance now, poultry vaccination in places like China, but they still see occasional human cases like in Cambodia recently, and Latin America has been hit hard with H5N1 in wild birds and sea lions, plus Chile had its first human case back in 2023.
So it's truly global. And this brings up that really scary possibility you mentioned earlier, reassortment.
Right. That's the nightmare scenario scientists worry about most.
Explain that again, what happened?
It's when two different flu viruses infect the same cell in the same host, say. A person gets infected with H5N1 and the regular seasonal human flu at the same time. Inside that person's cells, the viruses can swap genetic segments.
Like mixing and matching genes.
Exactly. And the fear is you could create a hybrid virus that has the deadliness potential of H5N1, but gains the ability to spread easily between humans, like seasonal flu does. That's how pandemics can start.
And that's why every single human H5N1 case is taken so seriously. Isolated, treated quickly.
Precisely. To minimize any chance of that reassortment happening, keep H5N1 away from human flu viruses.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? H5N1, jumping to cows and people. It's a serious reminder about how linked our health is to animals.
Definitely. And while the immediate risk to you, the average person, is still low, you're not catching this from buying pasteurized milk or riding the subway. The bigger long-term risk of this virus evolving into something much worse is real and can't be ignored.
It feels like this whole situation is really stress testing our pandemic preparedness systems.
It is. So far, containment has worked for the human cases. Each spark has been put out. But the virus is still out there, still circulating in animals, still evolving. The vigilance can't let up.
So, practical advice remains. Avoid sick or dead birds. Don't consume raw milk or raw poultry. And if you work closely with animals, report anything unusual.
Yeah, basic precautions are key. And stay informed through reliable sources.
The story of H5N1 is clearly still unfolding. It keeps surprising us. Even if this outbreak in cows eventually fades, the virus isn't going away. It's endemic in wild birds globally. The thing we absolutely have to watch for is any sign of human-to-human spread.
That's the critical metric. Are there clusters of human cases where you can't trace it back to direct animal contact? So far, the answer is no. Every single case has an animal link. The hope is, with continued vigilance, good science, and maybe a bit of luck, it stays that way. That H5N1 remains a sporadic threat, not the next pandemic.
It leaves you wondering, though, what will the next surprise from H5N1 be? And 1B, and 1B, and 1B, and 1B, and 1B, and 1B, and 1B.